what we do as architects is has essentially got to do with happiness. What we want to do is be able to make spaces or design spaces for our clients that keep them happy, make them happier people, keep them happy within the urban context, because you see more people unhappy in a city than there is other way. For example, Bangalore has been recorded to have some of the highest suicides in the entire country. One, because it is a city that has a huge population, and people spend a lot of times indoors in the lack of light, in the lack of ventilation, do not have a lot of connection to nature, though Bangalore is such a beautiful, has a lot of natural elements to it. So what we want to do essentially is to build a happy home in the sense that not only is it sensitive to the macro climate of where the wind and the air and the movement is, the sun movement is, but we also want to consciously build for the microclimate, because houses are really tight, the properties are really small, and one wants to make the most of it. So not just that, our houses are design-wise very contemporary as well, because we think that every building should belong to the context it is in. So literally as well. And the materials that are used for building the buildings are also very sensitively decided, consciously selected. Our buildings end up having designs in a way that, as I said, that are sensitive to the climate in terms of the air movement, where do I want a wind movement, at which part of the day, why, to make it as comfortable as possible, to make sure that there is no artificial air conditioning really necessary, and lighting as well. Besides that, our focus is on water. Water becomes a primary element of need. We want to ensure that we are conserving water, and Bangalore has this huge benefit of having rains which happen almost throughout the entire year. So these short spells of rain, for me to be able to collect, use, and then recharge the groundwater is what we look at. And of course, recycling grey water and looking at black water reuse as well, especially if you're outside of the city, outside of the urban context. We also focus a lot on waste management, and end up guiding and coaching our clients into understanding how waste management can actually be an additional resource for them. And of course, growing food, which is what I personally feel very sensitively about. To grow food in a way, in the simplest of ways, when there's littlest of space available, to be able to grow your own, make your life easier. Rooftops, make them greener, wherever little space available on the smallest of property, to be able to make it greener. And finally, to also ensure that materials, trying to use alternative techniques wherever possible, so that the carbon footprint of the buildings is the minimum. So that is essentially summarizing the philosophy that Studio Alia has.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier, yeah, your intent to integrate a lot of these things, and another thing I want to ask is you said something about place-based material sourcing.
Yes.
So if you can.
So from land and context to context, materials will vary. And like in Bangalore, you see that soil is a very easily available resource, because you have this beautiful, very sandy red soil that is easy to avail. At the same time, we see that there's a lot of topsoil being used for making bricks. So our need to be able to conserve the topsoil and be able to use subsoil, which doesn't actually have any regenerative property, for the purpose of building makes the best sense. Also using Hodi blocks. Hodi blocks, again, a technology that was invented in the south, and which is actually filler slabs, so that my roofs become light, insulated, to keep the buildings as cool as possible, because we see that being a bigger problem than making walls with alternative materials. If my context changes, so now again the material is decided based on what the energy source is from. So in Bangalore, most of my electricity is hydro, and therefore for me to think of thermal and offsetting thermal energy doesn't really make so much sense. But if one worked, when we worked in Pune, we worked in Tamil Nadu, you realize that thermal energy is there's the highest energy source there, and therefore offsetting it by using fly ash, which is an outcome of a thermal power station, a waste that is produced. for making the building is my compensation to the environment. So trying to use that material again in a way where it can add value to the building and reducing its carbon footprint.
Yeah, thank you. Then, what about the cost effectiveness of all the structures you build?
So the minute that you become sensitive to what material comes from where, and the fact that you are designing with material that is more available, it automatically becomes cost effective. It's really such a simple way of doing it. It is not when you have materials which are Indian for the purpose of finishing the building, finishing the houses that we build, like you do Atamburi tiles, or you do Kota stone, or Jaisalmer stone, or using a green marble which is coming from parts of the country. You realize that automatically the cost of the building becomes lower, because the material cost is actually the huger cost of any building today, especially in the contemporary context, because of this fascination for wanting materials from outside the country. And so the carbon footprint itself not only reduces, but the cost has to reduce. When I use a red brick, the red burnt brick, not only does it use the topsoil for the purpose of making it, it destroys all the organic matter when it is burnt. It consumes huge amount of logging of wood for the purpose of making those red bricks. And the cost of the red brick is always higher than from the soil that has been excavated from the property, right, mine, or maybe next doors or in the vicinity, and making the building with that. So the cost of these mud blocks, for example, or any other soil content is always going to reduce the cost. So it is certainly cost effective. The question very often asked is if there is a component of cost, is there a percentage in reduction? There is not something that you can actually tell from project to project. It will vary. Reduction of steel and cement would also lead to huge amount of cost effectiveness, and also, as I said, to the environmental benefit is huge. So our work is also very consciously attempting to reduce the amount of concrete and steel that we use.
So, finally, for many of us who are young, we see that the situation in Bangalore, like the environmental stresses and the ecological thing it is going through. Many have even predicted that it won't go on for long. Bangalore cannot run as a city like this for so long. So, what propelled you to take up this mode of existence, so to speak, in this kind of context, and what keeps you going, essentially?
See, it's very easy to be environmentally conscious when you're not in a city. So when you are in a village or you're in the extremities, you're automatically, being less of a burden to the planet of Earth. The cities, the urban cities, have become the way to live now. This is where life happens. So it's not something you can take away. This is the new that we need to embrace. But there is this inability to be close to nature when you are in the city. You realize you become more and more distant with how things happen naturally. And that is where the problem has actually initiated. The inability of people to sensitize themselves to nature and believe that because they're in the urban, they don't need to be in connection with the nature. And nature meaning the wind, the sun, the plants, anything that is around me, that is naturally me, which is actually adding to the positive and the energy that one really takes away from. So the challenge in a city is much huger than it is maybe in the outskirts. And personally, being the person I am, I love challenges. And the idea of being able to make something better, greener, more conscious in a city is certainly the reason that we see that we can actually contribute more. I don't quite agree that Bangalore as a city will not be able to run anymore. That is, if it is going just the way it is. There are enough and more environmentalists like yourselves who are really trying hard to change the way the city feels and looks at everything. And I am an optimist. I'm an ever optimist. I'm sure there are going to be changes. More people will see the benefit in being in a city and still being in connection to the nature. Things will change.
Thank you. And finally, what advice do you have for many of the young people who may be not sure, but definitely looking to do something that is environmentally conscious in the city?
Just be curious. curiosity is such an absolute essential element of being alive. Forget about being a designer or being somebody who wants to create or be a part of a change. Be so curious. Be curious about wanting to think of an alternative to everything. I think there are enough and more youngsters already so much more conscious than the previous generations were today. So that itself is awesome. The advice is be curious, be always conscious of why you're doing, question everything. Why do you have to build a conventional building the way it is? Why does every door have to be teak wood? Why does flooring have to be the fanciest material that came from wherever? Ask questions. Ask what is the necessity of this. You know, imagine security and the lack of security that we feel that you need to have these secured houses which are jails in themselves. We've become more isolated within the city than we have not been. How you will behave with yourself and the people around you and with the society you live in is actually going to dictate how you will be and what will happen to the city as well. So if I am okay with things, I'm okay with things. See, to be perturbed a lot is really not going to take anything anywhere. Thinking that you can change the world by telling everybody to change is not going to happen. The change has to begin with me. I have to start thinking of where I can really do things a little more sensitively. Like I mentioned earlier, everything, your water, your waste, your food, everything is a resource and everything is money. And the youngsters have become more conscious of money than anybody has ever been. This generation is. You'll respectfully look at water, you respectfully look at waste, you respectfully look at food, you will automatically attract money. You are disrespectful towards any of these resources, you will actually alienate money also. So that's the easiest way to look at everything as a resource, as a possibility of a cycle rather than a linear arrangement of things.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows a lot more than I sound really silly saying things repeatedly. Everybody already knows it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's it, right?